When I was in first grade, I'm at Mount Washington Elementary School in Baltimore. And then there was this really, really sweet girl in second grade. Her name was Lissy. And she sort of took me under her wing. And in first grade, I did not know how to tie my shoes. And Lissy told me one morning, she said, Jenny, it's no problem. It's so easy. And what she did is she did, I don't know if you're familiar with this way of tying shoes. It's a way that you can teach very, very young children how to tie shoes very easily. She said you make a bow, and then you make another bow, and then you cross the bows and put one under. Basically tie the bows together, and so you have your shoes are tied. So I learned that when I was 6 years old in first grade, and the truth is that today I'm 42 years old, and I'm still tying my shoes that way. I never really learned sort of like there's sort of a more grown-up way that probably you tie your shoes, so I've never learned that way. So the other day then I noticed something funny. I have a 16-year-old daughter. Her name is Hadass. She's my oldest child, and so I asked her to tie her brother Yoel's shoes. Yoel is 6, and I noticed that Hadass was tying the shoes, and she made 2 bows and she tied them together, and I was like, Hadass, since when are you tying shoes like that? And she said, well, since you taught me how to tie shoes like that. And I was like, oh, okay, so I taught her how to do that. And it was a funny thing because it really sort of struck me like, wow, like I taught my daughter something and she's still doing it. Like I have had an educational impact on my child, for better or for worse. And this, I guess maybe this sort of shoe tying influence is maybe sort of a part of kind of influence, but it really like, wow, like I'm influencing my daughter. And it reminded me of something that my father, I have really incredible parents, and I learn a lot about midot, about like good midot from the kind of people that my parents are. So my father, one of the most famous stories about my father, and what kind of, I think gives you a sense of what kind of person my father is. So many years ago when I was growing up, then we had a babysitter slash maid named Ruth Carter. And so when I was growing up, she was like my babysitter. And until my mom would come home at 4 p.m. My mom at that time was a pediatrician. Then afterwards she became a psychiatrist. It's a little bit complicated. But she would come around 4, and so until then, like Ruth Carter was watching me. So my dad paid into Social Security for Ruth Carter. To make sure that there would be money for her when she would retire. So my dad sent money to Social Security, and then Social Security sent the money back saying, no, this isn't necessary. And then my dad sent the money back to them saying, no, yes, I do have to pay into Social Security for Ruth Carter. So this is just like, it gives you a sense just of my father's, like his level of financial honesty is just really, really praiseworthy. So, the funny thing is, so that now, I think that, Jewish moms, that there's many things, many midot that I struggle with. I struggle with, anger and laziness and all sorts of character traits that I would like to improve on. But one thing that I really don't struggle with is honesty in financial matters. And to the extent that, like if I see that someone in the shuk has given me a shekel, let's say I get home, I see that the man gave me and the store gave me like a shekel too much. So a week later, if I'm going back a week later, then I'll remember to give him back a shekel. Like I'm that kind of. Again, I struggle with many things, but this specific thing is not something that I struggle with. It's totally from my parents. It's totally from that their honesty. So this morning I was walking around and I was thinking about this and thinking about what I was going to say in the pep talk, and all of a sudden like this amazing idea came to me. I was just thinking about how my father's my parents' character has come through to me, even without anyone really even saying anything. No one ever said to me, be honest in financial matters. But just like seeing my father, by example, who he is, and just seeing what kind of people my parents are, then it changes who I am. It has shaped in a way who I am. And in my children, Bezrat Hashem, I hope that mostly for better, that I'm influencing my own children. as I witnessed in the shoe tying episode, and I had this amazing thought that a few thousand years ago, that we had these amazing matriarchs, so I just made a small list of the things that we can admire in our foremothers. Sarah's strength of getting through all those 10 nisyonot, those 10 tests that Sarah and Abraham went through together. Rebecca's wisdom that she knew that Yitzchak was supposed to get the birthright. Leah's faith, Leah's faith, it says that Leah would pray and pray because she wanted to marry, she didn't want to marry Esav, she wanted to marry Yaakov. In the end, her prayers were answered, from like a real model of emunah. And Rachel, a model of self-sacrifice for her children. In fact, in the end, she even gave up her life for her son, in giving birth to her son Binyamin. And to this day, then we're taught that Rachel is still praying for us and crying for us, and in a way, somewhere like in our DNA and in how we are and who we are in our characters, somewhere inside of me is that. Isn't that wild? That somehow that through there's so many dozens and dozens of generations that I don't have, that we don't know. I mean, I think almost all of us, if not all of us, we don't know the women who were in those generations like past. Do you know your great grandmother who was living in 15th century Poland? Do you know your great grandmother was living in 3rd century Eretz Israel? No. But somewhere inside of us, then we have them within us, and somehow those traits of our holy matriarchs are within us. So I want to bless all of us. It's a very powerful thing. The thought of the power that we have as mothers to influence our children, and I think it's equally powerful. If we're struggling with different things in life, to remember what we have within us, that we're not just on our own, we're not just struggling on our own, as Hannah Jenny Weisberg, struggling with whatever I'm struggling with. It's like the emunah and the strength and the wisdom of all these generations previous, and all of my foremothers, and what they've gone through and who they were and what they inherited from our holy imahot. And somewhere it's inside me and inside you too. So I want to bless all of you Jewish moms with an amazing week.